So with cost of living going up, you may want to start making your own bread at home. This is what I made today. You can just watch this first 10 seconds, or if you really want, watch the rest of the 6 minutes and you know how to do it yourself. So, easy enough to make a loaf of bread: 1 kilo of flour, 20 grams of salts, fine sea salt, some yeast dissolved in water, a big bowl and a couple of tins. Well, not much to it, is there? Of course, you'll need a couple of these. Hopefully you've got those. I'm using fresh yeast, which has been frozen, so when it comes out it's a bit sticky. Yours will crumble if it's fresh, or use dried packet according to the instructions. I stir mine into the water, and then I pour my flour into the bowl. This is a whole kilo again of extra strong bread flour. 20 grams of salt goes in, mix it all around because you don't want it killing the yeast as soon as the yeast goes in. Throw all the water in, and then you'll need 330 mils of coffee, black, that goes in the chef.
Oh, that's hot.
Then bring all your ingredients back together. It'll end up looking like a porridge. It's a bit flaky now, but once it's all come together, dump it onto the surface and you're ready to start doing your slap and fold. This is a technique I picked up off Richard Bertonet. Really good. I've adapted it slightly, and you can see here at the start of it, everything just breaks away. There's no elasticity. It's all in the bread. So basically, all you do now is just keep doing this: slap and fold. Speed up a bit. Yeah, and you can see as I'm just going along, stretching it, we're about halfway in now. You can start making it into a ball. Keep bringing all those scraps back in that get left on the table. This is my adapted technique, so if you don't want to wake the wife up at 6 a.m. in the morning with the slap and fold, then you can just do that. Keep bringing it back into a ball. You can see it's much smoother now. It's still breaking apart on the surface. It doesn't have a skin. It's not forming that nice smooth like you get with a brioche. So, yeah, that doesn't look suggestive at all. So stretch your dough, keep slapping and folding it until it all comes together and it looks much smoother on top. Not too worried at this stage because it's going to have an hour of resting, or maybe 45 minutes to an hour, depending on your room temperature. And then we just pick this up, give it a little dust, probably more than I need there on flour, and pop it in the bowl, and it's going to stay in that bowl. We're about 20 degrees in here, so now about an hour. So after covering with a cloth and leaving for an hour, here you go. It's nearly double in size, and you can tell when you press it down, it doesn't spring all the way back, but it's got a little more bounce in it. Scrape it out onto the surface. You can see the whole thing's changed, full of air now. Full of CO2 from all the yeast eating up the proteins, and you see how smooth it is now on the surface, how fluffy. So I just need to shape this down, chop it in half, and I'm going to make 2 loaves. Now I'm going to do one in a banneton. That's what you see there. It's without a cloth as well, and it just shapes it nicely. And one in a tin, which I use oil and flour. It's not fully seasoned yet, so it might stick if I don't do this, but bang the flour around, make sure it's on all the edges. Chop off your first bit and start to shape it. So keeping the seam on the bottom where it's all joined, and rolling it round just makes the top tight, which is good for when it goes in the oven, holds its shape and then bursts at the right moment. Make sure you keep the seam on the bottom and make sure it's even. Pop it in the tin. And then with the next one, same again. I don't follow a particular method. Some people you see have sort of different ways of doing it. I just roll it around until it feels about right. Now we're putting this in upside down because we're going to tip this out onto the board before we put it onto our stove in the oven, which is warming up nicely. So just need to cover this and leave it to prove now. It rested originally, now it's proving for again 45 minutes to an hour depending on your temperature. Well, there you go. Suddenly it's back and I can press in there. If it bounces all the way straight back, it's overproved. If it bounces a little bit, that's good. I like to sprinkle a bit of flour for artisan's sake, and then I just slash the top with a raised blade. Slash the top again. Pour a bit of water onto a tray that's already been in the oven. I use my board straight on onto the stone there. The other one in the tin. Again, I've got steam in there. It's 250 for 5 minutes. Then you turn it down. 25 minutes later, you're pulling out a lovely golden toasted bit of bread. Tap it once you've tipped it down, just make sure it sounds hollow. Lovely. And then you leave it for about 45 minutes before you start cutting it. So over to me back in the kitchen. Well, after half an hour in the oven, 5 minutes on about 250, and then knock it down to 220 for 25 minutes. This is what's popped out. So time for cutting. I've had this knife for 25 years. That's not a knife. To quote a famous Dundee crocodile, that's a knife. Kin knife. Right, which one's going first? Look at that. See? Nice loaf. Try and move these out of the way. That is a good knife. Oh. There you go, look at that. Puff bread. Smashing.